This week we're focusing on two things when solving quadratics. At the beginning of the week, we're looking at quadratics and deciding which would be the most efficient strategy. Later in the week, we're working on word problems and you can choose to solve them any way you wish. Okay, so I took 4 problems that I found and I quickly went through and decided which would be which. I decided this one would be SPF because I realized I could do that 6 worked with 5. And I did square root here. Remember, my trick I tell kids is decide which ones are SPF and square root because they can't be used with everything. You can always use the quadratic formula or calculator with graphing. So I'm going to start with this because I think it's the easiest, which is SPF. And I know some of you just do it as you don't label it, but you write these down, -5 and 6. And you're thinking to yourself, what times what is 6? 1 times 6 and 3 times 2. And so this is my factors. What facts make this product? And I'm trying to get -5. This is +6. At first I thought it was going to be 6 times 1. But I realized if I make this a -1 or a -6, then this is going to have to be a -6. So it's actually -3 and -2. So it's x minus 3 times x minus 2 equals 0. Therefore, x equals 3 and x equaled 2. The next one. How did I know square roots? I usually use square roots when I see a nice, perfect square. And I know right here is a square. Remember, this is the only one where it doesn't have to equal 0. So I'm going to bring 9 to the other side. X minus 4 squared equals -9. Take the square root, take the square root. This is x minus 4. Can I take the square root of a negative number? No. So this answer is none. And I can quickly go and check that on the calculator. Okay, so when I check it on the calculator, here is what I type in. If I'm not positive, I can just go type it in. And I get, and I'm just going to do it, parenthesis. Okay, doing it again here, I get parenthesis x minus 4 and parenthesis squared plus 9. And when I graph, I know I did it right. I got an answer way up here, so there were no x's. Okay, while I'm at with the calculator, for either of these, it doesn't really matter. I just picked one as quadratic and one as a graphing calculator, but in all honesty, it doesn't matter which one I do. So I'm going to look here and do this one. So when I do the graph calculator, what work do I have to show? Just a picture of whatever your calculator had. So I'm just typing it in, clearing that, 25x squared minus 16. And I'm going to graph. And here's what I get. And these are the two I'm looking for. So it looks like they might be at -1 and +1. So I'm going to try to see in the table mode first. But nope, that isn't right. So now I know table mode didn't have any zeros. So that means I have to do second trace. So again, I'm going to hit second trace. I want the zeros. So you can either scroll down or hit number 2 and enter. And I'm going to look at the first one. It looks like it's somewhere between -1 and 0. So remember, when I do left bound, right bound, just put the numbers it's between. So try -1 for the left, and on the right, 0. And when you see the guess, hit enter one more time. And it's thinking. And it's still thinking, and there it is. So my first x was at -0.80. There's where that one is. 8/10. Okay, I'm going to try it again. And I'm going to do the one on the right-hand side. So hit second trace again. Hit the 0. Okay, so it looks like to me this is between 0 and +1. So I'm going to do 0, enter, 1, enter. When I see the word guess, I'm going to hit guess again. And I'm going to see that this now is at 0.8 and 0. So there are my two answers. Okay, the last one we've learned is using the quadratic formula. Okay, so again, I'm going to write that out because you don't ever have to remember it. It's negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So my first step is to list my a is 2, my b is negative 7, and my c is negative 15. Okay, x equals negative 7 plus or minus the square root of negative 7 times negative 7, 49, minus 4 times a is 2 times my c is negative 15 all over 2 times 2. Now I'm going to simplify. Negative 7 becomes a positive 7, plus or minus. This is when I take my calculator, and I'm just going to type in everything that's inside the square root, and the square root included. Second square root, I'll just type straight ahead. 49 minus 4 times 2 times negative 1, 5. And that gets me 13 all over 2 times 2 is 4. So now I have x plus 13, that's 20 over 4. And I have x 7 minus 13, that's negative 6 over 4. So this x equals 5, and this x equals negative 1.5. What you realize is you could have really used any of these strategies. I just reviewed all 4. On the next section, when you do it, you get to use any strategies you want to solve them, and they can be repeated.